welcome back to Loaded Landscapes. My name's Simon Plant, and today we're going to turn a tranquil English scene into a black and white image with a bit of attitude. So it's summer here in beautiful England, and I took a trip the other day to the ancient Roman spa town of Bath, and this is an image I snapped, and I just snapped this on a point-and-shoot camera, a Sony RX100 Mark II, which is a cracking little camera. I absolutely love it, and I take a lot of pictures on it. So it's a bit of a sort of a snapshot, as you would probably say, but I thought do something a bit different today. I don't do much black and white photography, and it's not because I dislike black and white photography. I'm just always been much more passionate towards colour imagery. But when I see a scene like this with lots of fluffy white clouds and blue skies, I can't help having the urge to do something quite stark and transform it into a black and white with very strong skies. So I thought it'd be fun to go into Lightroom today and show you how we can quickly transform this image from something tranquil to something quite stark and stunning. So here's the image open. I'm going to just come in, hold down the Alt or Option key, and just check my black and white points to see where they are. And there's nothing blowing out at the moment. And we can adjust these. I want to keep, quite a bit of detail in the sky here. So I'm going to bring down the highlight slider a little bit, just so we've got a little bit more definition in the clouds. And maybe just bump up the contrast a tiny little bit as well, but that's all about personal taste. Color temperature I'm going to leave as is. You can have a play around with that, and if you click on the black and white, you can get a preview of what the image would look like if we transformed it straight into black and white as is. And again, if you play around with this color slider, you can see that the image changes slightly. I'm not going to go too far on that, maybe just tweak it a little bit. Once we've got the image in a fairly good state that we're happy with, we can go into the black and white panel here within Lightroom. And this is a really quick, easy way of transforming your image into various different looks, within black and white. And one of the ways you can do that is to hold down this little mixer slider, I think it's called, and you can actually drag this over the image. And so let's say I want the sky to go dark. If I hold down the cursor on the sky there and click and drag and pull it down, I can now see my skies going on much darker. Now we don't want to go too far because we're going to start getting some strange fringing around the top of the buildings here. So I don't want to go much further than that. We can also then look at these trees and other parts. I don't mind the sky going down, the river, going down a bit darker, like so. So that will get you, that's a handy way of getting a good preview of what these adjustments do. Failing that, you can just come in and start sliding with these, just using the sliders like so, and that can be useful as well. The red one here, I'm going to adjust that. If you notice on the boat, as I slide this up and down, you'll see the life buoyancy aids on the boat. So there is small details in here, and it's up to you to decide what part of the image is most important, and whether you wanted to lighten or darken that. Now, I don't think the boat's a major player in this picture. I think the bridge is probably the main sort of focal point in this picture, but the boat does play like a supporting role. So always think about that. So at the moment, I don't think the image as is looking too bad, but obviously we want to sort of maybe push this a little bit further still. And one way we can do that is to use some of the selective tools within Lightroom, such as the adjustment brush or the gradient tool. So we're going to explore those in a second and see how far we can push this image in terms of adding a real bit of drama to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually use the adjustment brush tool, and this is obviously very handy. I'm sure you've probably used it before. And I'm going to really just adjust the buildings here. Remember that with objects with the most contrast, brightness, etc., tends to draw the eye in. Now, these are quite bright, but I think they're a little bit too bright in this black and white version. So I'm going to darken them down. So I'm going to get a brush. I'm going to tick this box which says show selective mask overlay, and that's going to give us a good preview of our masking that we're going to do with the brush. So I'm just going to paint along the bridge here, and this is obviously doing quite a bit of auto masking for us because I've got this box down here, auto mask ticked, so it's going to try and help you mask the areas it thinks you want, and it's doing a pretty good job at the moment. So I'm just going to come in there. That's looking pretty good. If you make a mistake, you can just press the Alt Option key, and that will erase your mask. So I'm just going to take it away from the edges there of the water. Okay, once you've done that, I would turn that off because it's annoying. And now we can come in and just look at dropping maybe the whites down. Just drop the tone of the buildings down a little bit. Not too far. I still don't mind them being light, but I don't want them looking too bright. And then I'm just going to bring the contrast up again. Contrast will drag the viewer's eye in. So what we're doing here, the adjustments we're making because we want the bridge and the building there to be the focal point in the image. So all these adjustments are to that end, really. Clarity, clarity is like a mid-tone, a sharpness as a bit of contrast. And there's a lot of texture in this image, and that's another thing we've got to be careful of. If we go adding too much sharpness to the whole image, it's going to get very confusing to the eye. So that's another thing to consider. So that's looking pretty good. Just bring the brightness up a little bit. Okay, so I think that's our first edit. Gonna add a new edit now. So click on the new brush. And I want this water to play a part. It's part of the composition, and it can, if we do it properly, lead the viewer's eye to the bridge again. It's almost like pointing to the bridge. So I'm going to show the mask again. I'm just going to paint along this edge of the water, like so. Okay, and again, I'm going to add a bit of contrast. It's already selected for me from the last adjustment. I might bring the highlights up a little bit, bring the shadows down a bit to add a bit of contrast. I think that's looking pretty good. Click on new again. This time I want to add a bit of extra darkness to the river around here, like so. So now I want to bring the brightness down. Just take the mask off. Okay, that's making quite a big difference to the image now. Bring the contrast up a little bit. That's enabling the white of the water to really stand out with that adjustment. And if we need to go in and adjust any of these, you can just click on the pinpoint, and it will show you which adjustment you want to adjust. So we've got 3 adjustments. We've got one for the bridge, we've got one down here for the water, and so if we want to change anything, we can come back in, highlight the pin, and then adjust them as we please. Okay, and there's another one there. So going to come out of there now. We can now use a gradient tool, and we're going to add a gradient to the top, somewhere like that. And for this, I'm going to bring down, again, the blacks a little bit. Being careful not to get some weird fringe in here, which is something I've noticed popping in. Maybe bring the whites up a little bit. Again, like so. Bring that down somewhat. Okay, so there's 2 more adjustments, and that's made quite a big difference to the image. Let's see if we can just see a before and after there. to here. I think there. So there's before, and then here's where we are now. Okay, so we've just drawn the eye a little bit more into the bridge here, darkened down the water, and hopefully this is just adding that little bit more direction to the viewer's eye within the image. It's just picking it up, and it's kind of pointing towards the bridge. So what we might do now is just darken this outer edge, and we can do that quite quickly in the effects tab. And let's drop down the amount and the feathering so we can see what we're doing. Okay, somewhere like that. Don't look too bad. Bring it in a little bit, and then we can just feather it like so. Okay, again, that's just keeping the area of interest the lightest in the image and allowing the rest just to bleed out quite dark, so that we don't want our viewer's eye necessarily going out here and mooching around. We want the viewer's attention to be kept in this part of the image. So far, I think we've come quite a long way in a very short time. Once I'm happy with that, the next thing we could do is to, if we wanted to, is to have some split tone in, if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that with this image. I had a little play around with it, and I think actually I prefer it as it is. The one last thing we can do is maybe add some global adjustment to the image. Clarity, and as I said to you, there's a lot of texture in this image. You start cranking up the clarity or the sharpening, and it just becomes a big mess of texture, and you don't want that. So I'd be very careful of that. The only reason I'm grabbing the clarity is actually I might add a bit of negative clarity just to kind of soften the image a tiny little bit around, let's bring it back up again, around maybe -9. Okay, just going back one step, the one thing I think I'm going to add to this image before we finish is another gradient, but a horizontal gradient going across the image. There's quite a lot of detail still here, even with the vignette that I've added, that we just don't need to see, and I think it's just that little bit unbalanced in the image. So I'm going to grab a gradient tool, and I'm going to click and drag it quite a way across the image, like so. It's going to be a bit wonky, as it often does. Okay, like so. I'm going to bring down the whites a little bit. I don't want to add too much contrast or anything like that, so just leave that around there. And yeah, I'm just going to bring down the shadows as well a little bit, just to darken that up a bit more. As I said, don't need to see stuff over there particularly. The boats are popping out quite nicely because it's white. So just these buildings and stuff here, I just think it's just clutter. We don't need to see it. So also just bring maybe the exposure down a little bit. Okay. Okay, not too much. Okay, like so. Okay, so pretty pleased with that. As I said, very quickly we've transformed a tranquil colour summer scene into something that's got a little bit more maybe character and grittiness to it. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.